right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Thank you, Erica Stanish, and welcome everybody to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm your host, Josh Taylor. Good to talk to you on a Saturday night. We've got plenty to talk about. Pirates are 3-0 to start the season. Penguins blow a 2-goal lead and they lose in a shootout tonight to Columbus. And March Madness is still going strong. A couple of one seeds already knocked out this weekend in the NCAA tournament, and it continues to go a little bit crazy. We can talk about that and more with my guest. He is live in Studio A, Chris Adamski, otherwise known as the Buzzsaw. That's what I call him from the Trib. Going back a little bit in the time machine there. But, Chris, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Pirates being 3-0 to start the season for the first time in 6 years? Do you want to start with the bullpen holding up in 3 games? Do you want to start with 22 runs in their first 3 games? Or Paul Skeens and Jarrett Jones? I don't know where to start with this because all this good stuff's happening at the same time.
You're right. There's a lot to go. Initially I would have thought to have your 2 future aces maybe in the same day making debuts, one in AAA and one in the majors. To see Jarrett Jones, everybody of course talks about Paul Skeens all the time and knows about him as the #1 pick, but having Jarrett Jones come out and show like that in his major league debut, and just sort of his demeanor on the mound too. These guys both look like kind of alpha ace types. And, I don't think many people talked about Jarrett Jones all throughout the offseason at least for 2024, as a starter for the Pirates. People talked about them being short of starting pitching. They probably still are, don't get me wrong. But when we're talking about the future and talking about Skeens and Mitch Keller and wondering who could maybe beat, if he's a guy, and I know it's 1 start, so it's not getting ahead of ourselves, but we saw all the Grapefruit League play. So that, to me, for the long-term prospects, yes, it's been something to see this offense, see the home run, see all the hits today. What was it, 16 hits? Maybe start out 3-0, maybe a 4-game sweep to start on the road to start the season. Lots and lots of things to be positive about very early on. But if we're talking about sustainable long-term this season and beyond even, I think seeing Jarrett Jones in that start and seeing a peak of what he could be as kind of a top-of-rotation guy if things break well, being, 22 years old right now.
That's the thing that I think stands out to me. 22 years old is Jarrett Jones, and he's doing that. Of course, he was a high school draftee, but he's come up through the system. I think he was drafted in 2020, comes up through the system, and he just completely explodes coming into this season. The thing that I think that sticks out to me with Jarrett Jones wasn't just the fact that he struck out 10 guys. It was the fact that he struck out 10 guys, was pitching pretty efficiently, and got all the way into the 6th inning. He had 2 guys retired. They pulled him with 2 outs in the 6th inning. They wanted to make sure they kept that lead intact there and got a fresh arm to get out of the 6th. But, Chris, I was really impressed not only with his ability to get outs, but his efficiency as well. Yeah,
exactly. A lot of times the younger pitchers like this, that's why they're drafted high. That's why there are big prospects, is the fact that they have these great arms, right? But sometimes the control's not there, the efficiency's not there, they know how to pitch is there. Maybe they throw 100 miles an hour, maybe they even have electric stuff on the off speed and a cutter with a slide, whatever it is. But the fact that he seems to have command in the zone and have that efficiency and seems to be a mature pitcher for what we've seen so far. And again, it's 1 start. I don't want to get too far ahead of things here. But it really, to me, that is the most encouraging thing. Like you listed a bunch of things you could talk about the Pirates here. It's not just the wins necessarily. It's the fact that the bullpen's been the strength that we thought it would be. It's been that the lineup has shown some power. It's shown up and down the lineup, the depth of the lineup. But this is all against left-handed pitching so far, at least left-handed starters they've faced. So you haven't even necessarily seen maybe the best of like a guy like Jack Sawinski, but we'll be facing right-handers more often. You're facing, I don't say your B lineup that the Pirates have been putting out there. You get this all so far without any real production from Andrew McCutcheon so far. So 3-0, hey, we learned last year even a full month isn't enough to say that it'll carry on throughout the season. And I don't know how good the Marlins are. I don't think they're going to be very good this year, but still, there's a lot of things. And we have all this time we haven't really talked, other than mentioning his name, that Paul Skeens did make that AAA debut today too.
Yeah, hitting triple digits on the gun a dozen times today. It's something that stands out. To your point about the Pirates being 3-0, there's a bunch of people probably watching this show yelling at their TV right now going, we've seen this show before. We know how it ends. We understand. We'll take a break. We'll all take a breath. We'll take some phone calls. We'll answer some tweets. We'll do it all when we come back. Stick around. Welcome back. Time for our GMC Sierra tweet of the night. Comes from MLB Pipeline. Welcome to the show, Jarrett Jones, Pittsburgh's #3 prospect becomes the 31st pitcher in AL NL history and 4th in Pirates franchise history, first since Tim Wakefield in 1992. to rack up 10 strikeouts in his MLB debut. We talked a lot about Jared Jones and what we saw from him today with the Pirates against Miami. Also, we mentioned Paul Skeens made his first start of the season with AAA Indianapolis. And Chris, we'll take this a step further here. And we talked about this before the break. A lot of people are going to mention, hey, well, they went crazy in April last year and fell off a cliff. We've seen them have good first halves of the season and fall off a cliff. We saw, 2 epic collapse seasons in the beginning of the 2010s. But the one thing I will point out, I think we've seen from this team so far, and this is the thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle over time. They've at least managed, and it's just 3 games, but they've managed in these 3 games to do the small things right. And when you see this team start to fall off, when things start to fall apart, they stop doing the small things right. So the fact that we're at least seeing that to start, I don't know if they're going to start out the way they're going to hold out, but at least it's good to see so far.
Yeah, like I was a lot more bullish than I mean, everybody was against me. So I realized I was like, maybe I'm looking at this in the wrong way. That the Pirates could, because I don't think the division's that good. I think the Pirates can be a team that can win in the 80s there, and then that puts you in contention to win this division. And I thought maybe they could do that, and I guess I still do, of course, after 3 games. But everybody, between the numbers, the analytics, the Vegas, all the writers, everybody's picking the Pirates last or second to last. So I kind of didn't. But I see a lot of this being you have some veterans. The young guys aren't super young anymore in the lineup. They actually have some MLB experience. They've been around. So. Yeah, sort of that. What was it, even 2 years ago when everything seemed to happen bad with the rundown and the sunflower seeds and whatever, the cell phone, all those types of things. I think maybe that era of the Pirates is finally behind them here, and I really do believe lineup-wise, 1 to 9. I'm not saying it's the best in baseball or the National League or anything like that, but it's certainly a competitive lineup. I think top to bottom and with depth. With some of the platoons they have and some of the options that Derek Shelton has to put out there every day, I do think it could almost compete and be representative of it every single day. And the bullpen, everybody believes, up and down, believe that's going to be a strength. So if they can get that's why this Jared Jones is such a significant part to this season. If he is even close to this kind of pitcher for them, everything else kind of fits together, and who knows with these Buccos.
412-575-2600. That is the number. Give us a call. We got Will and McKees Rocks on the line. Will, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Will?
Good. My best to you, Josh, and your family, as always.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I want to talk Pirates with you, please. I wanted to let you know, granted, it's only been 3 games. I'm not going to, raise the playoff banner yet, but is it me or has it been entertaining to watch?
It has. That's a great question. I appreciate the call. And Chris, I'm not kidding. I'll show you the text after the show when this is over. One of our producers over at 93.7 The Fan, his name is Nathan, just like my son. But we were talking about this after the game, and I said, I don't recognize this team. This is fun. And I wasn't saying that to be derogatory, Chris. I was just saying I don't recognize this team the way they're playing so far, because they're playing in games that are, like he said, they're playing in an entertaining style. When they get guys on base, they're driving them in. When they're putting leads together and the other team's coming back, they're expanding the lead. The bullpen's coming in and getting critical outs. The way they're playing the game right now, like I mentioned before, doing a lot of those small things is lending toward, I hate to call it, an aesthetic thing, but better looking baseball. That's not crazy to me.
And Jared Jones, I think, is part. I keep going back to him, but it was sort of
it's a big part.
His demeanor on the mound, the way he turns and walks after that. I think you have these young guys. I mean, Skeens isn't here yet, of course, but Henry Davis and Jones. These rookies, these younger players, there's a lot of kind of alpha types that are overly competitive, and I think that makes for a good clubhouse. I think of course, Aaron McCutcheon's a clubhouse presence at this point. Connor Joe's just one of those really likable guys all around. Chemistry, does that mean anything? Of course not. But you go up and down now. I really think that this is a team that, that's a good way of putting it. I just seeing the part today and going back to Jones for the most part, but O'Neal Cruz, of course, he's a guy that he's fun to watch. Every time he's at the plate, right? Fun to watch. Every time he's in the field, he's fun to watch. Brian Hayes is the type that at the third base people are talking about it with a straight face and totally serious. One of the best third basemen defensively of all time. You can see that every day. They turned 4 double plays last night.
Yep.
That just was one example of kind of that's one of the kind of slept on most exciting plays in baseball. I know it kind of sounds silly, but if you get a well placed or well played double play ball, there are a lot of things that kind of make this team fun. That they're relatively young, of course. That there's a lot of kind of high ceiling talent now. I mean, O'Neal Cruz, they talk about as an MVP candidate with a straight face. Skeens, of course, again, he isn't here yet, being a Cy Young candidate certainly down the road. There is a lot of reason for the first time, and especially, and I know we haven't touched on the Penguins yet, and probably good reason. We don't have to the whole show.
Yep.
But it is kind of crazy. These Pirates might actually be kind of the darlings of the city here, maybe.
You talked about it earlier, too, at the beginning of the show. You mentioned it with both Jones and Skeens, the way they go about their business. You hear the old scouts talk about attitude. That's the thing that they bring, the attitude, the mental makeup, and it's something we have not seen, not just from maybe Pirates pitchers not named maybe A.J. Burnett or Garrett Cole, but just specifically younger pitchers who walk in and they take the mound like they own the joint. And we saw Jarrett Jones do that. Paul Skeens does it every time he jumps on the mound, and he did it today with Indianapolis. He was perfect through 3 innings with 5 strikeouts. I think that's something, like you said, that kind of permeates throughout the room. You hear players and coaches talk about how winning is contagious and also how losing is contagious. So if your approach to the game can be contagious around a clubhouse, maybe that does help permeate around the room. Let's go to Robert in Pittsburgh. Robert, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yes, how y'all doing?
Good. About yourself?
I just wanted to call and say, so far how the Pirates are looking, they're looking like one of the best that they ever looked so far. I'm not trying to jinx them, but if they keep this up, this can be the best Pirates team that we had in a long time.
Yeah, I think cautious optimism is the word to use, and thanks for the call. I brought this up earlier in the hour. This is the best start they've had to the season since 2018, Buzz. 3 games in a row. They won 4 in a row to start the 2018 season. They got a shot to do that tomorrow. But it's one of those things where you say it and you don't want to get too enamored with it. And I say that because I was in that same boat a couple weeks ago. I think you know why, during the Atlantic 10 tournament, because I'm seeing Duquesne make this run. And I'm like, look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because every time someone would just ask me, hey, Duquesne's doing great. And I'm like, I didn't want to talk about it because you never want to jinx it. But for what the Pirates are doing, they're doing the small things right. I'll say that again. But more importantly, I think the way they're playing right now suggests that they're capable of being better than they've been in the past.
Yeah, we go back to last season, 20-8, and it's baseball. It's 3 games. It's barely a blip in terms of the overall. And I really don't think the Marlins are very good, and their pitching is decimated. And they have 4 starting pitchers are hurt right now. So they started their closer yesterday, who obviously didn't handle starting very well in Game 2. So I think yes, all out of the grain of salt, yes. But I honestly do believe this roster, this lineup, if the starting pitching and Jared Jones really, like I said, all fit together, I believe this team can be good enough to be competitive, to stay in some sort of playoff race or stay relevant. And again, with the new playoff format, all you got to do, last year, 84 games, got a team into the World Series.
Yep.
So if you're a 500 team, you are, by definition, going to be right there to the very last week of the season at very least. And I think there's enough here, there's enough reason to believe a lot of things have to fall their way. You can't predict. Somebody's going to hurt, somebody's going to slump, whatever it is. It's probably not going to happen, but I think you can look at every position up and down, maybe until you get to that 4th or 5th starter, and Paul Skeens comes up eventually and fills that hole, or everybody bumps down a spot. But I think there's reason to believe what we've seen these first 3 days isn't just a random occurrence.
Anything can happen in 162 games. We hear that saying all the time, and we're 3 games in, 159 to go, and we're still in that anything can happen territory. So we will continue to watch with, I'll continue to say, cautious optimism. But we're going to take a break. We'll wrap up when we come back. Stick around.